Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Gaurav Sharma and with me is Saira Mujtaba, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment, and more. The headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi reaches Uzbekistan to participate in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. Swedish Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson resigns after her government's defeat in Sunday's election. Angolan President João Lourenço sworn in for a second 5-year term on Thursday. Tens of thousands of people queue for hours in London to pay their last respects to Britain's Queen Elizabeth II. Taliban government in Afghanistan blames the Pakistan Army's attempt to build a security post at their border as the reason behind Tuesday's cross-border skirmish. Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan says that more than 100 Armenian soldiers have been killed in border clashes with Azerbaijan since Monday. Roger Federer announces retirement from professional tennis. And in women's cricket, the third and final T20 international between India and England to be played at Bristol tonight. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has reached Samarkand in Uzbekistan to participate in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. The 22nd summit of the SCO Council of Heads of State will be held tomorrow. On the sidelines of the summit, PM Modi will hold informal talks with a number of leaders on matters of mutual interest. Russian ambassador to India, Denis Alipov, informed that an informal meeting between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Russian President Vladimir Putin is likely to happen in the next few hours. The deliberations will be held on defense cooperation and military supplies, he added. The two leaders are expected to discuss international north-south transport corridor, bilateral trade and trade with Central Asian countries, cooperation within the UN and G20, strategic stability and the situation in the Indo-Pacific region. The Prime Minister will also hold bilateral meetings with the President of Uzbekistan, Shavkat Mirziyoyev.
SCO Summit is expected to cover various topical, regional and international issues including reforms and expansion of the organization, security situation in the region, India's cooperation with countries of the region, ways to strengthen connectivity and boost trade and tourism. The summit will conclude with the signing of the Samarkand Declaration. Numerous other documents are also expected to be ratified during the summit. India, which is currently the chair of the SCO regional anti-terrorism structure, is keen on boosting counter-terror cooperation with other SCO states. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization currently comprises 8 full-time members. Several like-minded countries have expressed interest in joining the SCO. Iran is expected to be awarded full-fledged member status during tomorrow's summit, while the candidature of Belarus will be formally considered. The summit is important for India as it will assume the rotational presidency of the SCO at the end of the Samarkand summit. Delhi will hold the presidency of the grouping for a year until September 2023. So next year, India will host the SCO summit. Bhupendra Singh, AIR News, Delhi.
In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a discussion on issues at Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit 2022. In conversation are Anil Kumar Triguniath, former ambassador, and Manas Pratimpuyan, journalist.
Ambassador Trigane, the 22nd summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is taking place tomorrow at Uzbek city of Samarkand. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will lead the Indian delegation at the summit, which will also be attended by Russian President Vladimir Putin, Chinese President Xi Jinping, and leaders of other SCO countries. So what is your expectation from the point of view of India's interest?
This summit is happening in the wake of the background of Russia-Ukraine war and also the Chinese and American geostrategic competition. and the world is also suffering for energy security, food security. These are major problems, especially in the wake of the pandemic. So therefore, SCO, which essentially deals with security matters, that India has been sharing this RETS, which is anti-terrorism exercises and structures. So this is significant in the sense that China, which is going to have its own major endorsement for Xi Jinping for the third time, CPC next month, and for Russia to show, while they are having some losses in Ukraine, show that they still have some kind of an international support, which is very much there in terms of this grouping. As far as India is concerned, it has been the same voice for moderation, for dialogue, diplomacy everywhere, and also against extremism and terrorism. So this is something that Prime Minister Modi will continue to talk about. Connectivity is a very major issue. But more importantly, we have to see that there will be a complete review of exactly how this organization worked from 2001 onwards, especially in the last few years. It will be the first opportunity when the leaders will be together once again. So far, there have been virtual meetings, whether in the BRICS or RIC or SCO context. So because of the pandemic. Secondly, the most important thing is that because India is going to take the baton next year, so henceforth the chairmanship of the SCO for next year will be passing on to us. So next year we will be hosting both G20 as well as the SCO summit, and hopefully in the SCO summit all the leaders, member countries will come. And also we have new member this time, Iran, which was admitted and will be fully participating. And what is happening in Afghanistan, that will be a very major concern because all the countries are involved in Afghanistan in one way or the other, and all of them have de facto recognized Taliban, if not the.
Mr. Triganaya, Prime Minister has issued a statement before departing for Samarkand. In the statement, he said that he was looking forward to exchanging views on topical regional and international issues, including the expansion of SCO, on further deepening of multifaceted and mutually beneficial cooperation within the organization. So how do you see Prime Minister's departure statement?
This is the key issues that have been discussed in the SCO, and rightly so that the Prime Minister today is talking about these issues will be with all his interlocutors. As I mentioned earlier, that there are international challenges at the moment which we are seeing as a result of the Russia-Ukraine war. Now we are seeing a conflict in Armenia and Azerbaijan. They may not be the part of this, but Russia definitely is a security provider there. China has a great interest in the Central Asia. India has a great interest in Central Asia. It is also all the countries are worried about what is happening to Taliban, how to move forward with Taliban. India has also opened its mission in Kabul. So I think all these issues, although Afghanistan, Taliban has not been invited to participate, but it will be very much part of this. Then there are Iranians who are also first time will be talking as a full-fledged member, and India and Iran have very good relations, but Iranians are also looking at the possibility that to use SCO as a forum to project themselves, especially in the wake of JCPOA. So when Prime Minister is saying that he'll be discussing about various dimensions of the regional issues, the international issues, the trade, energy, counterterrorism, those are the key pointers in this organization.
As you mentioned about the possibility of interaction between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping. So the talking point in the last few days has been that whether there will be a bilateral. So what is your view? I mean, do you expect a bilateral between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping?
Both the sides are pretty silent about it. So they wanted to see whether the 12th September work has been fully completed to the satisfaction. Both sides, and whether anything is going to come out further. There will be a civility between the two leaders. And even if there is not a formal dialogue, which I think might happen, if there is no formal dialogue, they will definitely have the pleasantries exchanged between the two, because see, when two leaders, there are three major powers at the moment in the SCO, there's China, there's Russia, there's India, and all three of them have interacted in RIC format, in the BRICS format, in the G20 format, and again they'll be meeting in Indonesia, Bali for the G20, and most likely in India. So we are going to be the host next time. So I would not discount the fact that there might be a bilateral.
Terrorism has been a very key focus area for India because we have been victim of cross-border terrorism from Pakistan. And India has been discussing ways and means to deal with terrorism in SCO RATS, that is the organization which is tasked to deal with various security challenges facing the region. So Pakistan, one of the member countries of the SCO supporting terrorism. So do you see SCO actually effectively being able to do something to contain terrorism in our region?
I would hope so, but who's going to bail the cat? The fact is that Pakistan itself says that it is also suffering from terrorism without mentioning that it is the propagator and the harbinger of the terrorist groups, which has been very clearly identified and the world knows about it. On the other hand, you have China, which has been putting technical hold on the Masood Azhar and his brother and all that from being brought under the purview of the international terrorists. So we have those kind of problems, but at the same time, it is true that Shanghai Cooperation Organization was essentially to target against terrorism and against extremism and radicalization. So that has been a core value of this, apart from collaboration and trade, economic tourism, and all those connectivity, etc. They are very much part of the organization. This is an organization which is also acquiring greater heft because we are seeing Saudi Arabia, we are seeing Qatar, and several other countries trying to be the observers in this. Even the United States at one time had shown interest in becoming an observer. So let's see. But terrorism is a major point for India, and I think for the organization.
Do you expect SCO to play a successful role in containing terrorism in the region? Can SCO ensure practical cooperation among the member countries so as to force Pakistan to do concrete action against terror groups operating from its soil?
I think that there is a significant possibility because that is one of the core values and the principles that it stands for. And that is the reason the SCO RETS has been created, and India has been holding the charge of it in the last 1 year, and it has been holding exercises. They have developed a new, India has also, there was an exhibition here, I think, in India, in which the Indian side displayed various kinds of methodologies, tools, techniques for combating terrorism. So there are practical cooperation that is now taking place among all the members, including Pakistan. And Pakistan is already under the lens of the FATF and under warning from various international organizations and countries for containing terrorism.
Two more areas, actually, the energy security as well as connectivity are of focus among various member countries of the SCO. Do you expect any concrete practical outcome from the summit on expanding cooperation in ensuring energy security in SCO member countries, as well as, in fact, enhancing overall connectivity in the region to boost trade?
India will be flagging Chabahar Port and international north-south transport corridor as a major connectivity issues, and we have directly seen its benefit during the Russia-Ukraine war when imports have been flowing in from Russia and via Iran. So there is definitely the connectivity is a major point, and of course energy security. This is why Iran has been asking that India should also, like it is buying from Russia, it should also try to buy from Iran using its strategic autonomy. That remains to be seen what decision India takes, but I'm sure during the meeting with Raisi that would be a point of discussion because we are energy deficient. So likewise, there are Turkmenistan and some other countries which have been interested in these pipelines, but they have been through Afghanistan and Pakistan. How that can be worked out, so connectivity issues are for all the countries which are mutually beneficial, whether it is for energy security or whether it is for trade connectivity in this moment.
As you said, the summit is taking place at a time when we have witnessed geopolitical turmoil triggered largely by crisis in Ukraine as well as China's aggressive military behavior in the Taiwan Strait. So what is your expectation from this summit? What are the key outcomes that we can look forward from the summit of the SCO in Samarkand?
Well, of course, there will be a statement which will reiterate all the right pointers that have been going on for there. Global issues are still there. Terrorism is very much there. There will be greater focus on reducing the conflicts or, for that matter, unilateral interventions. And those are the kind of things that will be done. But you must see that also how the Russia plays out its cards, because that's also very important in this. But personally, I see that the situation is so fluid around the globe that the statements that will be coming out will eventually be only indicative rather than definite.
There have been speculations about whether, in fact, Prime Minister Modi will have a bilateral meeting with the Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. So what is your take actually? Do you expect a bilateral meeting between Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Sharif?
I don't see real formal bilateral meeting taking place, but it is possible that they will exchange pleasantries because they know each other also. So there cannot be much meat in the meeting if it at all happens. But I doubt very much that this meeting in a formal manner will happen.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Triganet, for overall perspective about the SCO as well as possible outcome from the SCO summit in Samarkand tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is All India Radio giving you the world news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle at AIR News Alerts.
Sweden's Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson has resigned after her government was defeated in Sunday's election. Magdalena Andersson's centre-left coalition looks set to narrowly lose to a bloc of right-wing parties, 176 seats to 173 with 99% of the votes counted. Moderate party leader Ulf Kristersson is now expected to form a government. The bloc includes the Sweden Democrats, a far-right party that has campaigned against rising gang shootings. It is a huge blow to Andersson's Social Democrats, which gained votes compared to the last election and remains Sweden's largest party. However, in Sweden, it is bloc politics that usually decides who gets into power, and the right bloc has scored a razor-thin majority. The final result is still to be confirmed after a recount, which is the standard practice in Sweden. Ms. Andersson accepted defeat at a news conference on Wednesday. She formally offered her resignation on Thursday. Ms. Andersson was the Nordic nation's first female prime minister when she took office last year. She quit on the first day before returning soon after. The woman who became Sweden's first female prime minister twice, she has been edged out by a four-party right-wing bloc made up of the Sweden Democrats, Moderate Party, Christian Democrats and Liberals.
Angolan President João Lourenço is to be sworn in for a second 5-year term on Thursday amid tight security after a disputed electoral win last month. The inauguration will be held on the historic palm tree-lined Praça da República Square in the center of the capital, Luanda. Security forces set up a heavy cordon around the venue ahead of the ceremony. About 20 military tanks were stationed at a large traffic circle about a kilometer from the square. A large number of people and military forces had started patrolling the streets on the eve of the ceremony. Lourenço, 68, returned to power after the August 24 vote gave his People's Movement for the Liberation of Angola MPLA a thin majority, winning just 51.17% of the votes. The vote was to choose members of the parliament, where the leader of the largest party automatically ascends to the presidency.
Tens of thousands of people queued for hours in London on Thursday to pay their last respect to Britain's Queen Elizabeth II on the first full day of a coffin lying in state. Britain's longest-serving monarch, who died a week ago, aged 96 after 70 years on the throne, is at rest in Westminster Hall ahead of Monday's state funeral at neighbouring Westminster Abbey. After lining up for 2 days, the first public mourners were allowed into the vast medieval hall on Wednesday afternoon, following the coffin ceremonial procession through the back streets of central London from Buckingham Palace. Since then, a steady stream of people has continued to file past the Queen's coffin, with thousands waiting through the night for their chance to say farewell to the country's figurehead. Her coffin, mounted on a platform, is draped in the Royal Standard flag and bearing the imperial state crown plus her ceremonial orb and scepter, with tall flickering candles standing at each corner.
Antigua and Barbuda will vote on whether to become a republic following the death of Queen Elizabeth II, the country's Prime Minister has said. Gaston Brown said a referendum could take place within 3 years, but emphasized that the move was not an act of hostility. He made the comments after confirming King Charles III as the monarch and the head of the state of the Caribbean nation. Mr. Brown said that he intended to introduce the referendum if re-elected next year. While he expects to win that election, his party holds 15 of the 17 seats in the House of Representatives. He accepted that there hadn't been any major demand to hold a vote among citizens. Earlier, Australia ruled out a similar vote within the next 4 years. The Queen's death has reignited Australia's monarchy debate, and Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, who was elected in May, is a Republican. But he ruled out a poll in his first term and told a news channel that the bigger question about the country's constitution are not the ones for this current period.
The Taliban government in Afghanistan has blamed Pakistan Army's attempt to build a security post at the border as the reason behind Tuesday's cross-border skirmish. It caused multiple deaths on both sides, including at least 3 Pakistani soldiers. Taliban spokesman Bilal Karimi said in a statement on Wednesday that Pakistan forces tried to erect a military post near the line. The exchange of fire between the two sides happened in Pakhtia province on the Afghan side and Pakistan's Khurram region. Karimi said some Afghan authorities went to talk to the Pakistani officials allegedly building the border post, but they were fired upon. The statement added that the Afghan government is investigating the matter and that the leadership of both the nations were in touch to ensure no repeat of such an incident takes place. The Taliban's response came a day after the Pakistani military claimed terrorists from Afghanistan opened fire on Pakistani troops stationed in Khurram, resulting in heavy casualties for the rebel fighters.
The Al-Jazeera television network has said that its journalist Ahmad Najdi has been released by the Egyptian authorities. The move comes as the Egyptian President Abdul Fattah al-Sisi is visiting Qatar, where Al-Jazeera is based for the first time since the two countries restored relations last year after a long-running diplomatic dispute.
Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan has said that more than 100 Armenian soldiers have been killed in border clashes with Azerbaijan since Monday. Speaking to his country's parliament, Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan said 105 Armenian servicemen had been killed since Monday night in attacks he blamed on Azerbaijan. He also accused Azeri troops of occupying 10 square kilometers of Armenian territory this week and said he had now turned to Russia for military assistance, a long-time ally of Armenia. Azerbaijan says 50 of its own troops have also been killed in the fighting, which both the sides blame on the other. It is the latest in a series of long-running conflicts fought between the two former Soviet republics over the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region. Russia and the US have each called for peace between the two countries.
A Senate committee in the United States has taken the first step towards legislation that would significantly enhance US military support for Taiwan. It includes potentially billions of dollars in additional security assistance as the self-ruled island comes under increasing pressure from China.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met with an accident when his car collided with another vehicle this morning after a battlefield visit. However, he is safe. In a statement, the president's spokesperson informed that a passenger car collided with the presidential vehicle and his escort when he was returning to Kiev from the Kharkiv region. He said the president was examined by a doctor and no serious injuries were found. The spokesperson added that all the circumstances of the accident are being investigated.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says a reservoir dam has been hit by the Russian air raids in his hometown as officials urged the residents in the area to evacuate. Kryvyi Rih, the largest city in central Ukraine with an estimated pre-war population of 650,000, was hit by 8 cruise missiles on Wednesday, the officials said.
People have taken to streets in several cities across Haiti after the government announced a substantial increase in the price of fuel that will further squeeze the population already struggling with soaring costs of living. The Haitian authorities announced on Wednesday that the price of gas will more than double, with slightly smaller increases for diesel and kerosene.
Bank heists in Lebanon have become a growing trend, but these armed robbers storming into banks are not stealing anyone else's money. They are just demanding access to their own savings. And instead of being prosecuted, the perpetrators have largely been allowed to remain free and have become folk heroes. The incidents have become increasingly common as Lebanon's economic crisis continues. The Lebanese local pound has depreciated by more than 90% against the United States dollar on the black market, while the government's restrictions on how much money people can withdraw from their own bank accounts have also exacerbated the situation.
Roger Federer, one of the greatest tennis players of all time, has decided to bid farewell to professional tennis after the conclusion of the Lever Cup 2022 next week. Today, in a tweet, the legendary tennis player shared a lengthy note to open up about his retirement plans. He clarified that he would play more tennis in the future, of course, but just not in Grand Slams or on the tour. A tribute to Roger Federer from our sports desk.
Playing more than 1,500 matches over 24 years, the marvel of tennis exponent Federer said, "Tennis has treated me more generously than I ever would have dreamt, and now I must recognize when it is time to end my competitive career." Federer further thanked his wife Mirka, who has stood by his side for every minute. He wrote, "She had warmed me up before finals, watched countless matches even whole over 8 months pregnant, and has endured by goofy side on the road with my team for over 20 years. Roger left an unfulfillable void in the international tennis circuit. Adieu, Roger." Nishit Kumar for AIR News.
In women's cricket, the third and final T20 international between India and England will be played today at the County Ground in Bristol. The match will begin at 11 p.m. Indian time.
Over the past 75 years since independence, India's largest public service broadcaster, All India Radio, has been the proverbial storyteller for 1.3 billion citizens across the country. All India Radio is celebrating 75 years of freedom with the series Azad Bharat Ki Baat, Akashvani ke Saath. In today's episode, we will bring you the story of infrastructure development in India.
The infrastructure sector is a key driver for the Indian economy. It includes power, bridges, dams, roads and urban infrastructure development. The major reforms in the Indian infrastructure sector came with the implementation of the 12th Five-Year Plan 2012 to 2017, where the government began to place a significant emphasis on the infrastructure sector by announcing investments to the tune of $1 trillion, with 40% of the funds coming from the private sector. As a part of its policy reforms, the government also allowed 100% foreign direct investment through an automatic route, ensuring minimal interference from governmental entities. In order to boost the growth of the infrastructure sector, the Narendra Modi government has introduced the National Infrastructure Pipeline (NIP), along with other programs like Make in India and the Production Linked Incentives (PLI) scheme. Prime Minister Modi has introduced various initiatives for the infrastructure sector, which include Smart Cities Mission, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, Jal Jeevan Mission and Udan scheme. Recent government initiatives like the Gati Shakti National Master Plan, National Infrastructure Pipeline and Asset Monetization Plan pave the way for the country to have a robust infrastructure framework.
PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan के तहत रोड से लेकर रेलवे तक, एविएशन से लेकर के एग्रीकल्चर तक विभिन्न मंत्रालयों को, विभागों को इससे जोड़ा जा रहा है। हर बड़े प्रोजेक्ट को, हर डिपार्टमेंट को सही जानकारी, सटीक जानकारी समय पर मिले, इसके लिए टेक्नोलॉजी प्लेटफॉर्म भी तैयार किया गया है।
Across the nation, world-class infrastructure in the fields of roads, waterways, trains, airports and ports are being built. The goal is to improve interconnectivity between roads, rails, airways and waterways to cut travel time and increase industrial production. The total length of national highways has grown from 21,378 kilometers in 1947 to more than 1.4 lakh kilometers. Union Minister of Roads, Transport and Highways Nitin Gadkari says that India now has the second largest road network in the world, with a total length of about 63 lakh kilometers.
India has about 63 lakh kilometers of road network, which is the second largest road network in the world. The road infrastructure plays a critical role in the growth of the Indian economy, as 70% of the goods and nearly 90% of passenger traffic uses the road network to commute. The national highway constitute about 2.2% of the total road network, but carry over 40% of the total road traffic.
And now, before we end the bulletin, a quick look at the headlines once again. Prime Minister Narendra Modi reaches Uzbekistan to participate in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. Swedish Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson resigns after her government's defeat in Sunday's election. Angolan President João Lourenço sworn in for a second 5-year term on Thursday. Tens of thousands of people queue for hours in London to pay their last respects to Britain's Queen Elizabeth II. Taliban government in Afghanistan blames the Pakistan Army's attempt to build a security post at their border as the reason behind Tuesday's cross-border skirmish. Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan says that more than 100 Armenian soldiers have been killed in border clashes with Azerbaijan since Monday. Roger Federer announces retirement from professional tennis. And in women's cricket, the third and final T20 international between India and England to be played in Bristol tonight.
And now, before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Costa Rica.
Tere
And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.